The city has authority over daycare based upon a delegation from the state that requires that it be at least as stringent in its daycare provisions and requirements as the state is. And so as the state changes their code and increases their requirements, the city's obligated to stay ahead of it, or at least as stringent as the state. In the past, the city has been a long way in front of the state in daycare, but as the state catches up, the state code and the city code have converged to some extent. So the majority of the changes that are proposed here today are based upon those things that the state has now created, and I'll just briefly highlight some of those. The state now has a statement in its code that says that there's no purpose to construe or restrict religious teachings or doctrines or values by providing daycare. So we've included that as a proposal. Also, we've had some exemptions in the code, but now we have included specifically some other exemptions that the code, the state code, has carried with it for a number of years, but in order to match the definitions more closely. It doesn't have real substantive change there. We added a preschool definition because there has been some ongoing discussion among certain providers of daycare whether they're preschool or daycare, and it's meant to capture those entities who might be providing preschool-like programs so that they fit within our daycare ordinance. Then we have a number of crimes that have been specifically called out by the state that we've included here. And as a result of a change a year or two ago, there were two different sections that listed the crimes, and what I did is collapse them into one section because we no longer have two ways of looking at that. That was a leftover from including all the crimes that the state had listed individually. So that's just a housekeeping structural change. And then we also require first aid treatment and pediatric rescue breathing. And because we already had a provision similar to that, I collapsed those two together, so it's just one paragraph. That's not new, except for the pediatric rescue breathing language. And even though ours probably includes that, I wanted to make sure that there wasn't some confusion about whether or not we did too. And then I think finally we have proposed here that every sleeping or resting child shall be heard at all times by an audio live feed, not video, just audio, so that if there's a separation from the caregiver and those children who are sleeping, either physically or the caregiver isn't right there, at least they'd be able to hear them with the child monitor. So if you have any specific questions, Kelly and Stephanie can answer those, and I can help.
Thank you, Randy. Council have any questions for any of those aforementioned people? No? Dan, the administrative committee took a look at this.
Yes, we did. We were full of ordinances the last couple of weeks. And as Randy said, there's a lot of stuff there that basically now the state has gotten a lot clearer with their regulations, and we're starting to mesh up a little better now with this new housekeeping in here. Everybody knows that the mayor, and everybody here will know, the mayor sent out email today about something that the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare has. It's the Quality Rating and Improvement System for daycare, I guess, in Idaho. It's the Idaho STARS Quality Rating and Improvement System, and there is a brochure. I imagine we could probably, and I see Mr. Parsons nodding his head about it, so obviously he's familiar with it as a daycare provider. This is probably something that we ought to put on the city website, I would imagine, that so that, for future discussion, it's an optional, a voluntary quality rating and improvement system for child care facilities here in Idaho. So it gives parents another tool when they go looking at daycares that here's someone following a certain set of parameters that they can be confident in. So I'd hope we could look for that on the city's website. Otherwise, unless there's any other discussion, I'd move that we approve this ordinance under suspension of the rules, requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and it will be read by title and published by summary.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have Dan's motion, and I heard Wayne's second first. Yeah, beat Tom to it. Is there any discussion of that?
Just have a question.
Sure, Wayne.
One of the things that admin was asked to look at is numbers pertaining to related and unrelated children, which is one of the things that was brought up tonight also. So I would assume that sometime down the road we'll be looking at that.
Correct.
And seeing if we can't get something else that works.
Right.
Okay.
Do we have a date yet, Gary, as to when that might be coming before the administrative committee?
I've not settled on a date with
We're going to
the chairman, so when I get the direction, the date will be set.
I do appreciate Dan's mentioning this memo pertaining to the Idaho Stars program. As most of you probably know, Idaho's daycare licensing requirements are not ranked very high relative to others in our state, and I think to give people who may not have personal familiarity with daycare operators in the area that extra tool, as Dan mentioned, to have some ranked reassurance based on qualitative measures and quantitative ones as well, that would maybe give them a little more comfort in selecting a daycare provider. So I do think that posting it on the city's website, making it available to applicants for a daycare license would be a great idea. Thank you for mentioning that. Any other discussion before your vote? Okay. Tim, we'll start the roll call vote with you.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, that motion carries, and so that's ordinance number 2011-06, an ordinance of the City of Moscow, Idaho, a municipal corporation of the State of Idaho, providing for the amendment of Moscow City Code Title 9, Chapter 10, providing for the city adoption of recent changes made by the state legislature, providing exemptions from licensure for certain activities and facilities, adding crimes to the list of those which prohibit daycare licensure temporarily or permanently, providing for health and safety standards, providing that the provisions of this ordinance be deemed severable, and providing for this ordinance to be in full force and effect from the date of its passage, approval, and publication according to law.